to dim the lights a bit, lean in, and really explore one of the absolute most chilling maritime mysteries of the 20th century. We're talking about the silent death of the SS Ourang Medan. Now, this was supposedly a Dutch-flagged cargo ship, but here's the thing. Its very existence is shrouded in this thick, impenetrable fog. What it was actually carrying, where exactly it had departed from, honestly, much of that has just never been confirmed. And as we'll see today, that massive uncertainty, it's exactly what makes this story so incredibly unsettling. So let's go ahead and dive right into the dark waters of this mystery.
I want you to picture this. You're sitting in a cramped, dimly lit radio room, surrounded by literally nothing but the vast, pitch-black ocean. And then, suddenly, the static crackles. A voice comes through. It's shaking, it's broken, barely even audible. And the terrifying message was just so simple. Every officer on board was dead. The voice kind of continued, super frantic, before uttering one final chilling phrase, and then just total silence. Nothing else ever came through. Now, I know it sounds like it totally belongs in some Hollywood thriller, right? But this was a very real distress signal picked up out in the open sea.
To really grasp how strange this whole thing is, we've got to look at where and when it actually happened. So it's the late 1940s in the Strait of Malacca. Now, this isn't some isolated, forgotten corner of the globe. Absolutely not. This was, and honestly still is, one of Southeast Asia's busiest shipping routes. We're talking hundreds of cargo vessels crossing these exact waters every single day. So when that faint, desperate distress signal went out, it wasn't just screaming into the void. Two nearby ships actually picked it up, and both of those ships changed their courses immediately, heading straight toward the coordinates to see what was going on.
Let's walk through exactly what the rescue crew experienced when they finally caught up to this drifting vessel. So first, stepping aboard, they were met with a completely empty main deck. No one around, just the sound of the ocean slapping against the hull. Moving up to the bridge, they found the captain. He was dead, just slumped lifelessly in his chair. As they ventured deeper through the corridors, they found the rest of the officers and crew scattered all across the floor. Some were near doorways, some way down in the engine room, but there were absolutely no survivors. And here is perhaps the most unnerving detail of the whole shebang. As they went below deck, the air turned unnaturally cold. I mean, think about it. In the sweltering tropical heat of Southeast Asia, the lower levels of this ship were literally freezing. And it gets worse. The rescue crew noted that every single face on that ship reportedly carried the exact same strange, frozen expression. These guys didn't look like they had simply, drifted off to sleep. Not at all. Their eyes were wide open. Their arms were completely outstretched. It was almost as if every man on board had seen something entirely incomprehensible in his final moments. Like they were trying to physically push something invisible away from them. Just completely terrifying. And yet, amidst all of this death, nothing. There were no wounds, no blood anywhere. The entire crew had been totally wiped out, and yet there wasn't a single sign of physical trauma or struggle. There were no weapons lying around, no signs of blunt force, just nothing. And get this, it wasn't even just the human crew. Even the ship's dog was found dead, frozen in that exact same grim state. So whatever happened on the SS Ourang Medan, it happened simultaneously, it happened silently, and it spared absolutely no living thing on board. Now, the rescue team, as you might imagine, was thoroughly spooked by this silent graveyard, and they decided they absolutely weren't going to stick around long. They just needed to get the ship towed back to port. But within minutes of setting up the tow lines and preparing to move this eerie vessel, thick, acrid smoke suddenly started pouring directly out of the cargo hold. And I mean almost instantly, a violent fire erupted and just spread across the entire ship. The rescue crew literally had to drop everything they were doing and scramble back to their own boats just to get clear of the inferno. Because the SS Ourang Medan didn't just burn. Within minutes, the ship violently exploded and sank straight to the bottom of the ocean floor. That sudden, catastrophic destruction, that is exactly what separates this story from almost every other maritime tragedy in history. Just as a team arrived to bear witness to the aftermath of whatever killed this crew, the entire crime scene essentially self-destructed, taking every single one of its secrets right down into the dark. Which really brings us to the most jarring part of this entire mystery. Because the ship vanished so completely, there were zero forensic investigations. None. Zero physical samples collected from the bodies or the ship. And, shockingly enough, there are actually zero government registry entries that can definitively confirm a ship even existed under the name SS Ourang Medan.
It's just a totally unprecedented void of official data. Crazy, right? So we're left with this massive void. All the physical evidence, the ship itself, the bodies, the cargo, the logbooks, all of it disappeared into the ocean forever. All that really remains are verbal accounts. Every terrifying detail we have about the frozen faces and the outstretched arms, it comes entirely from the unverified secondhand stories of the sailors who were on those two rescue ships. We are basically relying entirely on human memory of a deeply traumatic, chaotic event. But humans demand answers, right? Even from ghost stories. So over the years, researchers have clawed for some kind of explanation, desperately trying to explain the unexplainable. And this has basically resulted in three primary theories: carbon monoxide poisoning, secret chemical weapons, or the very real possibility that this whole thing is just an elaborate urban legend. So let's break these down and see which one actually holds water.
Okay, let's start with a really grounded scientific theory: carbon monoxide poisoning. Imagine a silent gas leak from a malfunctioning engine that slowly spreads through the lower decks and the ventilation of the ship. You know, carbon monoxide has no smell, it has no color, it would silently incapacitate everyone on board, and obviously, in high enough concentrations, it is absolutely fatal. This actually perfectly explains the total lack of physical wounds, the lack of blood, and why people just dropped exactly where they stood. Yep, even the ship's dog. Now let's look at the second major theory: the secret transport of undeclared post-war chemical weapons. The timeline here is super critical. It's the late 1940s, right after World War II. And during this era, there are actually highly documented historical cases of dangerous surplus chemical weapons being quietly transported across the oceans to be disposed of. Experts have pointed out that a leak of specific nerve agents or hazardous chemicals could cause exactly the kind of sudden, silent mass death that the rescuers described. It would also easily explain that sudden violent explosion and even those unnaturally freezing temperatures down below deck, depending on the specific chemical reactions that were taking place. But we do have to confront the third and honestly perhaps most unsettling theory of them all. No wreckage, no black box, no documentation. Many researchers believe this entire event might never have happened at all. Seriously, no surviving eyewitness was ever definitively tracked down to go on the record afterward. No shipping registry confirms a vessel by this name ever sailed. So for a lot of historians, the SS Ourang Medan isn't a documented historical event, but rather just one of the ocean's most elaborate, enduring urban legends. And, you know, that touches on something pretty profound. Despite all our modern radar, our satellites, our sonar, the ocean is still this vast, unknowable place where things can just simply vanish. So maybe the Ourang Medan was the tragic victim of some hidden toxic chemical disaster. Or maybe it's just a sailor's yarn that grew a little larger and a little darker with every single retelling in port. Either way, it serves as this incredibly powerful reminder. The ocean might look small and manageable on a digital map on our phones, but in reality, it is far more unknown and terrifying than we really like to admit. So what do you guys think? Was this a real covered-up event, or is it simply the ocean's most famous ghost story? Let me know your theories in the comments, and hey, if you want to uncover more unsolved mysteries, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Our next explainer is going to cover another incredible disappearance that has literally never been fully solved.